Justine Martin is an extraordinary keynote speaker. She presents a story that is not just unique but profoundly courageous. Her narrative challenges the very notion of strength and determination, forcing you to reconsider your beliefs. A journey that commences with an MS diagnosis 11 years ago, traversing through 3 heart surgeries and then 3 primary cancers. Against all odds and the discouragement of medical experts who deemed her unfit to work, Justine defied fate's decree. Instead of surrendering, she leapt into the realm of business, not only reshaping her life with purpose and direction, but also inspiring everyone around her. Her resolute stance in the face of adversity serves as a beacon of determination and a wonderful story for us as women to hear today. So I'd like you to welcome Justine Martin.
Hi everyone, I'm Justine. I don't know where to start after that introduction. I normally start from when I was diagnosed with MS in 2011, but I thought this is her story, this is my story, and I've got 2 stories. So I have one prior to being diagnosed with MS when my life was semi-normal, and then I have one after MS, and that's one where a lot of you know about if you've been following me on socials or you've seen me in the paper, and that it generally talks about from 2011 onwards. I'm going to fill in some blanks on what's made me me through that. Now I'm writing a book at the moment. It's called Moxie, How I Learnt to Harden the Fuck Up. All right, I make no apologies for the title whatsoever. Even though my auntie's like, you can't call it that. And I'm like, you're not the right demographic for the book. I can call it anything I want. So let's cast your minds back to 1971 when I was born. You can all work out how old I am from that. I was born to Marion and Norman at Baxter House. Who else here was born at Baxter House? Woo! Hello, sisters. All right, so I was born there in 1971 and March 1971 to be precise, and then January 1972 my baby brother came along. Yeah, there's not much time between then. So 10 months, 3 weeks later, he was born. I thought I had a normal childhood, as you do when you're growing up. It's not until you go into therapy years later that you go, yeah, maybe it wasn't so normal. When I was 3.5 years of age, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 27. We were living in Melbourne by that stage. And she was one of the youngest to actually survive breast cancer in those days. And we got shipped off to my grandparents in Sydney, my brother and I. So I was nearly 4 when that happened. And it was traumatic. It was hard. We didn't know if we'd ever see Mum again, and she was down the highway, that 10-12 hour drive, especially in the old cars back then. So we spent nearly 6 months with my grandparents before Mum was well enough to look after us again, and then we went back to live with Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad owned a service station in Melbourne, so he worked constantly. Mum used to pump the driveways, and my brother and I used to play in the chemical sand out the back. You know, it was the 70s. We drank out of tap water, out of the hose, all of that. So then it was about 9, so it was about 1980, Mum and Dad's marriage started to fail, and he had an affair with our babysitter. Yeah, so that was tough going, and he moved out. Mum had an affair with the butcher. You can't make this stuff up, I tell you now. You cannot make it up. You all want to read the book, don't you? August, it's coming out, when I finish writing it. Then Mum got very ill, really ill, and she was unable to walk very well, and then hopped on a plane and came down, and the doctors wanted to cut her head open. They thought she had a tumour on the brain. And my grandparents went, no, you're not doing that. You're not doing exploratory brain surgery. We're going to put you up to Sydney. And they sold all our belongings, put my brother and I in a car and drove us to Sydney to live. And Mum spent about eight months in Sydney Hospital, and she was diagnosed with MS. Now, where we were living, my grandparents I loved them dearly. They made the best of a very bad situation, and my grandfather never dealt with being a World War II veteran as a gunner he was a flight sergeant in a Catalina. So you can imagine the war that he had. So he had post-traumatic stress disorder, which then filtered through into the family right down through the generations. Now, my brother and I shared a room. You can imagine just starting puberty, and I started puberty early. I had these disgusting big underarms, gross hair everywhere in year 4. All right, I developed very early. And I was sharing a room with my brother. Now, that room felt like a dungeon. It had no windows. You know, the old air vents? Okay, that was our light into the room. It was a room that when my uncle built the house, they cut too far into it, and they decided that one day it was going to become a games room. Well, it was a storage room. It had a dungeon literally had a dungeon cellar into the rock of it, and then there was our room, which we shared with 2 cars as well, and my grandfather's workshop. But I didn't know any different. That was normal until therapy years later. So then Mum got well enough to look after us, and she didn't get along with my grandfather, neither did I in the later years, and she got a job. She worked again. She got out of her wheelchair, and she was well enough that she's a very determined woman, and she goes, right, we're moving 8 hours north, as you do. So we ended up in Glen Innes in northern New South Wales. And I went to high school there. Now, because of all the trauma that I'd been through, my grandfather cut my father out of our life. There was no correspondence. Dad would try and call, and my grandfather wouldn't let him talk to us. My grandfather always thought that my mum had married beneath her. And it was difficult, it was tough. We grew up, my brother and I, and we talk about this quite often, grew up saying, he used to call us the arseholes children, directly to our face. That conditions you on how men treat you. And trauma and love have combined in my life for a very, very long time. So then now, because of my MS, I've got major brain damage. I've got cognitive impairment and acquired brain injury. So sometimes I'll lose where I'm up to in my story. You all better be paying attention, because I'm going to pick on someone to say what my last line was, okay? Yeah, the struggle is real. And I can't count properly anymore either. That all left, telling the time properly, all of that left in 2011. But hey, I'm still here, I'm still kicking. There's a spoiler alert, I lived through all of this, okay? It's not all doom and gloom. Where was I up to?
Assholes. Yeah.
Oh, there was something after that.
Love and trauma.
Love and trauma, that's right. Right, high school. Oh, high school was traumatic for me. I got picked on by the boys. I'm tall, you know. They were short. They didn't like a tall woman, tall girl back then, and they picked on me. And I was large too. So I ate for comfort, and I built up this wall of blubber around me to protect me from the outside world. I could never do anything right in my mum's eyes. Never. The more I tried, the less she saw me, the less she acknowledged me. My brother could never do anything wrong. He was that golden child. Now, it wasn't until I went into therapy years later, I think I've paid for 2 cars for my therapist, what about you? That I realised and I was made aware that my mum was a narcissist. All right? Through no fault of her. It was the generation before, what she'd been through. It was her survival mechanisms. And I don't blame her at all. I've forgiven her for the way that she treated me. I forgave her after she died. So then in high school, yeah, terrible. I got a really bad reputation for sleeping around. There's no other way to put it. You can read that in the book. There's a few men out there that are really, really scared. Really scared. So then went through high school and I wanted to be a musician, just like you, Grace. Wanted to be a musician, and I studied music at school, and I was in the stage band, concert band. I taught tuba, because tuba was my instrument, because I'm full of hot air. And I wanted to become a classical composer and conductor. That was my dream. I was going to go off and conduct the world. So I went off to uni and started. I wrote my first symphony at 15. I was pretty proud of myself doing that. And went off to uni, and then Mum got sick. Oh, hang on. Did I tell you that she got MS? Yes. Right, okay, see? This goes sometimes. When I was 17, so she was about 40, I think, she got cervical cancer. So she wasn't a well woman. She'd stopped work by that stage. She couldn't work anymore, and she was on a disability pension at home. So I went off to uni, and my brother went off and joined the army. So I was at uni for about 9 months, and she got really, really sick. And she wouldn't get out of bed, she wouldn't go and buy food, she wouldn't do anything, and one of us had to go home and look after her. My brother was under contract, he couldn't leave, so I packed my dreams up, which was only supposed to be temporarily, and I went home and I looked after her. And we had a role reversal, and it was bloody tough. It was really, really tough. And we'd fight constantly, and I just wanted someone to love me. That's all I wanted. Someone to love me, someone to appreciate me. Then this man came into my life, and he ended up being my son's father. And when I look back on that relationship now, it was full of narcissistic abuse, and there was a bit of physical violence there as well. He left me when I was 13 weeks pregnant to go on a 4-week trip. He came back when Zach was 9 months old with another girlfriend. So I had Mum in a wheelchair, a 6-month-old baby, and myself trying to hold it all together at 22 years of age. And it was tough. It was really tough. My grandfather actually stepped in for the first time in 14 years. And he said, "You can't do this anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit, Sherlock, I can't." I was a mess. I had the responsibility of my son to look after. It shouldn't have been my responsibility to be looking after my mum like that. So we put her into care. And that's probably one of the hardest days of my life, feeling that I'd failed her. And it still gets me. But I know that she went into a better place of a facility that could look after her. She made me feel like shit for years. Every time I'd go and visit her, and it was an 8-hour drive down there, an 8-hour drive back with Zach in the car, it was horrible. She died in 1997. So I met another man. I met another man who ended up being my daughter's father, and I had the misfortune of marrying him. And I knew I shouldn't have been marrying him when I walked up the aisle. And I actually rang a family member and said, "I don't want to do this 6 weeks before." She thought I had the jitters. I really knew I shouldn't have been doing it. She goes, "Don't you dare cancel holidays, Justine. Don't you dare cancel this wedding. We've all booked our holidays in." I'm like, all right. Okay. You know when you're waiting for God to give you a sign not to do something? All right, 6 weeks before I got married, I had my underarms waxed and I got an abscess. All right, is that a sign? I didn't think so. All right, let's see. The week before I got married, got my bikini line tidied up. Got a double abscess, one the size of an egg, the other the size of a walnut. 5 days before getting married, I had to go and have major surgery and have it all drained. I was waiting for God to give me a sign. All right, still didn't quite compute. Let's see, the day of the wedding, they went out to play golf. No one took a watch. They were late. Went to sign the marriage license and the pen didn't work. But I was waiting for a sign. All right, I'm not the smartest cookie on the block. Anyway, that relationship lasted 3 weeks off 3 years, and he spent the majority of it in the spare room, and we should not have walked down the aisle together. What I was in love with was the concept of having that nuclear family and having that love that I didn't have, and his mum was so nice to me. That's what I fell in love with, not that man. And that's why it fell apart. And how many other women do that? Fall in love with the ideal of the marriage, but see the red flags there and just ignore them. I had big blinkers on. So then 1997, Ali was born, and my mum, I found out the day after she was born that mum had lung cancer. And it was tough. I was 8 hours north, stuck in hospital, just giving birth, you know, the hormones raging. And we had to make a decision as a family. So my nana, who was in Woodend, my brother, who was actually still living in Glen Innes, he'd come back from the army, and myself. And we sat in my hospital room and decided that we would go ahead and consent to her having half a right lung removed, because she was going to die if she didn't, but what if she'd lived through it? And she'd lived through so much, we just thought that she'd be here. Anyway, 7 weeks after that surgery, she passed away. And it's still tough. And it's 27 years. And it was a traumatic time. So I'm known as the Queen of Resilience, but that didn't just happen overnight. That's been one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. So then I was single. I booted the husband out, owned a shop, had to close it because he decided to treat it like his own personal bank account, and put me into $38,000 debt. I had nothing. I have always been in survival mode, pretty much my whole entire life. Can you imagine what that does to your health? What it does to your mind? It's tough going. You name the job, I've probably done it. It's been nothing for me to have 3 or 4 jobs at once, to put a roof over my kids' head and food in our bellies. I've become a strong woman because of it. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have a choice but to do that. I didn't have parents to guide me. I have an auntie who I love dearly, who I ring up. She's pretty much on speed dial, and she's taken over that pseudo mum. But she's still not my mum. So then, when I lost 95 kilos in 1 week, when I legally booted him out of my house. That was a good week. So I was out the front arguing with him, playing tug of war with a $10 garden hose. Jeez, I wish there was video back then. And then I'll let him have it, so you can have the $10 garden hose. I'm keeping the house. It's in my name. I'm keeping it. He forgot to tell me, right, when we got married, that he'd been bankrupt. Like, isn't that something you think you would tell your wife? We went for a house loan and he didn't tell me that he'd been bankrupt. Anyway, it was all in my name, so it was good. He didn't get anything of it. Strong women, see? Then, where am I up to? Bankrupt. Oh, yes.
That you left, you booted him out.
Booted him out, that's right. So then I'm a sucker for punishment and I used to think that I needed a man in my life in order, you know, that nuclear family stuff. Needed a man. How was I going to find a man in a small country town with 6,000 people when I went to school with most of the men that were there? And I knew why they'd separated with their wives, and I wasn't going there. So my girlfriend said, come join tug of war. Now, high school, I did music. I didn't play sport. I'd worked out that the high school teacher and the music teacher and the sports teacher were married. So I'd go up to the sports teacher and say, your wife needs us today. Your wife needs me today. I've got to go and teach someone some music. So I never played sport, hated it. He or she was saying, come and join tug of war. We travel the country. And I'm like, who's going to pay for that? I'm a single mum. I've got no money coming in. She goes, oh, we fundraise. She goes, oh, there's men's teams. And I went, what time's training? I said, what about my kids? She goes, bring them along, it'll be fine. I went, okay. So I went and joined tug of war. I ended up joining and competing right up to national level in tug of war. I wouldn't think so, I'm so glamorous nowadays, but used to get, all dirty, on the rope, 96 ends in 2 days, and then couldn't stand upright for about 4 weeks. Broke my back pulling tug of war. Didn't know, it's fine, didn't know. It wasn't until I had an MRI probably about 8 years ago, and they went, "You've broken your back at some point." I went, "Oh, yeah, right between your shoulder blades. Do you know how that would have happened?" I'm like, that would be where the rope went down my back when I was pulling one day. Oh yeah, that hurt. Didn't realise. All right, it's fine. So I went to the national championships in Maitland, and there I saw him. The other end of the room. It was like a Mills and Boons. Should have aborted mission. Anyway, I met this guy, another one, and I said to my coach, "Where are they from?" Finally, a hot one. And he goes, "Oh, they're the canines." I went, "Yeah, where are they from?" "Oh, they're from Perth." "Are you serious? That's the other side of the country. I'm northern New South Wales, he's in Perth." Anyway, guess where I ended up? Perth. So the kids and I packed everything up and we moved across the country, and I started life over there. And that gave us choice, opportunity. It was amazing over there. What he didn't tell me was that he was an alcoholic. So in the time that I was spending with him, he would hide it. And then when we moved in and we bought a house together, that all came about. So for 8 years, the kids and I would hide at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when he was having his benders. Or we would get in the car and we'd drive around and wait for him to pass out. So it wasn't good. Then I met another man after that one, and then I was diagnosed with MS. I was engaged to be married and diagnosed with the MS. And we moved back over to Victoria, back to Geelong. I'd come a full circle to be closer to Mum's family. When I was diagnosed with the MS, I was told by my neurologist that I would never be able to work again. Now, the year before I was diagnosed, I'd had 3 jobs. Remember how I said I always had lots of different jobs? So I was a Weight Watchers leader, and then I started working for Tupperware. So I used to do about 10 to 12 meetings a week in Weight Watchers, and I ended up losing 46 kilos because I did peak the scales at 125 kilos with Ali's father. He was a feeder. He used to, I'd try and lose a kilo, he'd try and put 2 back on because he didn't want anyone looking at me. It was his insecurity, not mine. And there's a lot of men out there like that. So then in WA, I finished up with Weight Watchers, became a plastic party person, selling lots and lots of plastic. I used to sell personal sales of about $150,000 a year. It's a lot of containers to pack up. Because that was back in the days where they'd drop all the boxes and you'd have to go through and pack them all up. And my kids, I'd say, grab that UFO container and the spaceship over there, and we had all these code names for it. The biggest week I ever sold was about $19,500. That's 55 cartons that got delivered to our front door. It's a lot of plastic. Then I went from there to a wholesale meat outlet, a bit like what Tasman's Meats used to be. And then I decided to run for the election, as you do. Federal election, as you do. My mum always said to me, if you don't like something, don't sit there and whinge about it, get in and do something about it. How many of you sit there and whinge about something but don't do anything? The majority of the population. All right. So I went, rightio, I'm going to run for the election, the Senate. Put me on the ballot paper. And I ran for a very controversial political party called the Australian Sex Party. It's not about having sex, all right? It's about civil liberties. And the majority of the policies that we ran for in 2010 have become bills. They're now here. Voluntary assisted dying, we legalised medicinal cannabis, same-sex marriage, they're just a few of them that got put through. And Victoria is the most progressive state in Australia. So well done, Victoria, on that. So it was when I was running for the election, I started getting vision problems, and then I didn't get in. I did come 6th out of 55, so I was pretty happy with that. And then I went from there to Jenny Craig, and I became a program director for Jenny Craig. That was my career highlight. I'd worked so long with Weight Watchers wanting to go into Jenny Craig because that was like the elite, and I got there and became this program director, and then my world crashed. I'd just gotten engaged to Kel and I couldn't see. My vision had gone blurry, my cognitive issues were terrible, and my neurologist said to me, after 6 months trying to diagnose it, you've got MS. I'm like, what? No, we were always told that we would never get MS, that MS isn't hereditary, but if there's a genetic predisposition and all the environmental factors are in place, you can get it. I won the lottery, just the wrong one. He said, you can't work anymore. My world crashed, bigger than anything ever before. I lost the ability to put a roof over my head. I lost the ability to put food in my own children's mouths. And I solely became reliant on another human being, a man. Now, I'm not a man hater. I'm back on internet dating, so don't think that I'm a man hater. I just make better choices nowadays. So when he said I couldn't work anymore, he did say to me, you better find a hobby. Now, my hobby has turned into very, very, very successful business. I now own and run Just Art, and we comprise of Just Art wellness classes for people with disabilities, and I'm an illustrator of children's books. And last week, so on the table up the back, you'll see this book. This is about finding hope. Now, there's a key story in all my keynotes when I get up there, and that is that my story gives other people hope. That you can get through adversity and you can shine through it and you can make a better life for yourself. It's pretty ironic today that this is hope. This is hope. Now, this is a book that I wrote and illustrated for River's Gift, all about their blue elephant, hope, in finding hope. And hope is in all of us, and it can pass from one person to the next. It's magical like that. So then, 2011, that was the MS, and then started painting, drawing, doing markets, all of that. And then 2013, 14 and 15, I underwent heart surgeries because the MS wasn't enough. So I had a resting heart rate of 217 beats a minute. Yeah, I was nearly dying. I still remember the ambulance officer's face going, oh, this is not good. And there was like 4 or 5 of them in emergency trying to work out how they were going to get my heart rate back down to a reasonable level that I could walk around with, which was about 155 beats a minute, until they could give me surgery. So they gave me surgery. It lasted 11 weeks and it came back. So then I had another one, then I got hemorrhaged after that one, and then went back to him and said, look, I think there's something missing, my heart doesn't feel right. And then about 12 months after that, I went back in and I was missing 1 in every 5 heartbeats. You probably miss 24, 25 beats every 24 hours, to give you a bit of comparison. So I got that fixed. In the meantime, I decided that I was going to pick up weightlifting in particular. Well, you do, don't you? So I started weightlifting after tug of war in Perth, and we continued on, my daughter and I here, and she was competing in Olympic weightlifting. I competed at the Australian Masters in bench press and I won it. I was the only one in it. But hey, where was everyone else? You know, I was the best on the day. Where are all you? Didn't see you out there competing. And then when I was training for that, I went, oh, I might give Olympic weightlifting a crack. And I thought my coach had forgotten about it. But no, the Monday after the Australian Masters Games, I walk in, he goes, right, you ready to start Olympic? I'm like, no, I was just kidding. Anyway, I did it. And I've got state and national and international titles in that. There was not many people in it. There were a couple, I beat a few. Didn't lift heavy, but it was a whole mental thing for me. I could pick something heavy off the ground and no one could tell me that I couldn't. My mum used to say to me, there's no such thing as can't. Just work out how. And that stuck with me my whole entire life. So, Olympic weightlifting, I was competing in Tasmania and I started going purple. My hands went purple, my ears went purple, my nose was going purple, and then that put me on a trajectory of being diagnosed with why I was looking like a zombie and coming out of The Walking Dead, which my son thought was great. You know, mum's out of The Walking Dead. We try and put a bit of humour into all of this, but I got diagnosed with melanoma when they were looking for lymphoma. So the purple was called lividio reticularis, which is a blood condition where all the capillaries under the surface of the skin start clotting. Then, so this is 2016. I just bought my own home in my name, and the day I got the keys was the day that they said, we think you've got cancer. I'm like, are you serious? Okay, all right, well, let's get a name to it and let's get onto it and see how we can get rid of it. So lividio reticularis, they found melanoma on my leg when they were confirming that it was the lividio and they were looking for lymphoma. Then I got diagnosed with mixed cryoglobulinemia. They're really big words and I've said them a lot of times. So my internal organs were all being choked off by my veins. I had so much inflammation, I couldn't bend my fingers and I couldn't wiggle my toes. So that was 2 blood conditions and the MS and 1 cancer. Now they knew that I had lymphoma, they just didn't know what type, and then in January, a phone call. By the way, you've got chronic lymphocystic leukemia and you've got small lymphocystic lymphoma. So I had 3 primary cancers, 2 blood conditions and the MS all at the same time. I went, all right, I'm going to renovate my house. Because that's what you do, isn't it? When you're going through chemo, let's renovate. I wanted to put in an art studio that I could actually then teach other people how to paint. So that kept my mind busy. I came through that, went into remission in 2018 from that one. 2018, I happened to be looking through Instagram and I saw this lady that had a thing called lipedema. Anyone heard of lipedema? Lipedema is inflammation of the fat. So it's not lymphedema, which is the swelling in your legs. Lipedema is fat. Now I'm going to show you my legs. Feel free later, if you can't see them, to come up and ask to see my legs. Now I'm on a bandwagon at the moment because lipedema affects 11% of all women, and I'll guarantee you that there's some women in here today with it. It's resistance to weight loss, and every time I used to go into the doctors, he'd say, oh, you're just obese, you're not trying hard enough. Go and lose some weight. All right? It's resistance to weight loss, you bruise easily, and it's really painful, and it's fibrous fat. Can you see my legs? Yeah. I've got padding around the knees. They kind of look like a billiard table. All right? I'm also 2 sizes smaller in my nice waist than what I am in the hips, and it's in my arms. And in my arms. Okay, that's lipedema. And I'm putting a book together at the moment, an anthology, on other people's stories that live with lipedema. So everyone wants to know my secret. That's when Resilience Mindset was born. And I go out now speaking the world on my story and educating what it's like to live with a hidden disability, because that's a disability in itself, having MS, because no one can see it, and now about the lipedema as well. 2020, I met another man. You'd think I'd learn. And unfortunately, he was a very nasty man, and he threw me into a wall and broke 3 bones and broke my wrist. My drawing, writing wrist. So I had to come back from that. But I did. I adapted my painting style and I wrote and illustrated a book called Same, Same But Different. And it's a book all about inclusion and equality, which came about from my little sausage dog. Now, if you're ever in Marshall, you'll see my house. It's the one with the big 5'6" giraffe out the front, and it's turquoise, lime green, pink, and we've got a oh yeah.
It's like purple, the house.
Yeah, with a 6 metre sausage dog along the fence. Feel free to come take photos. She pees on everyone out of anxiety. I thought, well, she doesn't treat anyone the same, everyone different. Why can't the world be like that? Not pee on everyone, but treat everyone the same. So that book came about. And by starting that book, I also started a publishing business. Then last year, I put together a book called Whispers of Resilience, Our Stories of Multiple Sclerosis. I wrote an article for Mamma Mia that went viral about Selma Blair, Christina Applegate and myself all having MS and the dangers when comparing to other people. You know, they've got money. They have the top treatments. The average person here doesn't. Though we do live in a very good society with Medicare here compared to America. But this book here is 26 stories, including a snippet of mine, on what it's like to live with this incurable disease. And I'm donating 25% back to MS Australia for research to try and find us a cure. So I enter lots of awards and I own lots of businesses. And I now own 7. I've got a gardening business, Geelong Residential Cleaning and Garden Maintenance. Yes, we do Torquay and everywhere else. I don't actually go out and mow, you know that, don't you? But my daughter and my son-in-law work for me there. Nothing like having your mother-in-law as your boss, really, is it? And I've entered lots of awards, some of the big ones. Last year I won Geelong's Business Leader of the Year. First disabled person to actually win that able-bodied competition. Very proud. I'm going to send my book Moxie back to my first neurologist, who told me that I couldn't work anymore, yet here I am out there winning awards. 2 weeks ago in Perth, I won the 2024 Momentum Empowerment Woman of the Year. And last night I was supposed to be in London, but they swapped the dates and I went, I can't go, I've got you guys. So I stayed, and thanks. And last night I won silver for the Women Changing the World Disability Leader of the Year. So, so my message to you, there's far more in my story. Today I've skipped the second half and concentrated on that first half to give you a little bit more of an indication. When you build resilience, it keeps coming. I don't bounce back. Did I ever say that I bounce back? I bounce forward. Every adversity that I have faced has forced me to look outside the square. That's how you grow. We grow through adversities. Right? I'm not saying celebrate them when they come, they're bloody hard. 2 years ago I lost my partner. Not the one that put me into a wall, but this really nice man that I finally met. And after 9 months, I found him dead on the floor. And I'm like, don't give me any more chapters. I've got enough. But there's obviously something in there that is meant to come out, to share with other people, that you can pick yourself up. You can dust yourself off. And you can build a better life. It just takes time. And you can't do it by yourself. And building resilience is not something that you ever do by yourself. It takes support, a tribe, a community. So reach out and don't try and do it by yourself. Anyway, that's me.